Hi, my name is Elisa Mathieson, and I am the Executive Director of an organization called Power of Story, based in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And I wanted to jump on today and just give you a quick visual overview of what a social medical history is. In Minnesota, we have a standard format that we use to gather information for youth and care. By statute, it should be completed within 6 months of kids being in care, but sometimes that's pushed back just due to, the day in, day out needs of young people. And so at Power of Story, we really want to elevate this conversation and point out the importance of these documents in filling them out completely and well and providing a really well-rounded history for young people. So here is the form itself and a little bit about each section. So this is our standardized form for Minnesota. When did the social and medical history start? And then when was it most updated? In best practice, we want to update this with every move of kids in care, or at least annually, because kids grow fast and things are always changing. This first section is identifying information on the child. So it has first, middle, last name. What is their race and religion, language spoken? Do they have Native American ancestry? Does ICWA apply? We really want to make sure that these are all being covered right away and in thorough detail. Down on the page, the next section is about the child's siblings. This section can be expanded for as many kids as are siblings to the child we're working with. And so whether they're birth, adopted, or step siblings through marriage, we want to gather all of their information here. Because Minnesota has a Bill of Rights called the Sibling Bill of Rights, siblings are able to have each other's contact information, so last known address is on there, as well as where they are living and why. So if they're not placed with the child we're doing the social medical history, where are they? What's the plan for visits? All of that information. The next section, you can see just the very beginning of it here on the bottom, is a child's placement history. So that's when did they come into foster care? And then on the next page, it's why did they come into care? Was it because of abuse or neglect or exposure to drugs and alcohol? What was the situation? What was the appearance of the child when they came into care? And then, is the child under guardianship of DHS? So has their birth parents' rights been terminated or not? Yes or no. If they haven't, if their birth parents are still working their case plan, the plan is still reunification, termination has not occurred, then that section would remain blank. But once it starts to move towards adoption, that information is put there. What was the legal authority for them to do that? What was the case they made? Why this child could not return home? And then we have a placement record. So start date, end date, where the provider lived, why they moved in, and why they moved out. This section, I cannot overstate the importance of it. We find so many our young people are confused as to why they came into care in the first place, so that top section, and then why did they move around so much in care if that was their case. And this section can really be helpful in saying why and when. Where did I live? Why did I move in? Why did I move out? And then it goes into child's medical history and current history. So this is medical information specific to the child that is being talked about in the social medical history. What's their current state of health, allergies, medical issues in the past, surgeries, things like that. That's all right here for that specific child that the social medical history is being done for. And then a list of medical providers and contact information, purpose of treatment, and when they were seen. I think this section is one of the most important for birth parents. If this document is completed while kids are still in foster care, it's supposed to be returned to the birth family at when they reunify. And how great would it be to have a list of all of the medical professionals they've seen before, after, and during care, and what was found out during those visits. And then immunizations, a list of all the childhood immunizations are on here. And then it goes into child's educational information. So where have they gone to school? Do they have an IEP? Are they on track to graduate? When did they go there? For some of our youth who have been lucky enough to be in the same school for a long time, this is a pretty straightforward section. For those who have moved around more, this can get really complicated. The next section goes into child's description, so positive and more challenging words here. Once you click on a box, it expands to add more information. So if I were to click the box that says that this young person is affectionate, then a box would open up and I could give an example of that. All of this information is usually found through conversation with current and past foster parents, as well as conversation with birth parents. And then again, more words, some open-ended statements tell us more about what works when they're having a hard time. What are some of the child's strengths? What are the areas of concern? And then what are the comments about a child's behavior? So really helpful section, and one that has a lot of room for strength-based conversation to say, kid is acting like X, possibly because of Y. And so not just being, kiddo is bad or wrong, but they're having a hard time and this is why. Child's mood or demeanor, again, box click, opens up, more information added. And then what are those peer relationships? What does that look like for this young person? Then it goes into relationships with adults. So is this child pretty trusting of adults or not trusting? Do they have an easier time with males or females? It's really important information to have, both for future placements as well as for the young person themselves when they're grown. What were they like during their time in care? Child's personality and child's schedule, fears, comfort items, hopes and plans for the future, and then likes and dislikes. So what are some favorite foods? What are some favorite toys? What is the child interested in? What do they want to do in their spare time? Their hobbies, their talents, sports, really talking about the child as a whole person, not as a case, not as something that's happened to them, but as individuals. Then it goes on to talk about birth relatives, with the biggest sections talking about birth mom and birth dad. So birth mom is this whole first section, and this applies whether or not termination has happened. It's who's this child's natural biological mom. We're going to talk about her in this section. So what do we know about her? Height, weight, distinguishing physical traits, birthplace, how old was she when the child was born? All these really important information together. And then it goes into what is her race, what is the highest level of education she's attained, and then what are some positive attributes, what are hobbies, what have visits been like, what are interactions like between her and her child, and then medical history, mental health history. One thing that I really like to do is when I'm talking with birth parents to say, who are you? Who are you outside of the file? What is special about you? Because we all have special things about us, and what are hobbies and all of that. And I put all of that in here, trying to gather as much nuanced information about her as possible. And then the one that I really, really like to gather as much information about as possible is summary of life experiences as relevant to the child's best interests. So it's good for the kids to know if mom spent time in foster care herself, or it's good for them to know if she had significant barriers to overcome in her own childhood or her own young adult life. That's important to know. And then the birth father section is very, very similar to the birth mother section. It has basic information about him. It goes into positive attributes, mental health history, medical history, and then summary of life experiences as in best interest of child. Again, as much information as possible goes in here. And then if there has been an adoption disruption, or if child was living with auntie and then was removed from her home, that goes here. So if that was the case for this young person, this section gets really full because you have to do all of the same kind of information pieces as the rest of the document for their legal parents that they were removed from. And then there's, again, a checklist of family medical health history. So this is obviously for the birth family, the genetic family, but if you click on one of these, then it will open up. You can say exactly, was this on the maternal side? Was this maternal great grandma, paternal grandma, paternal auntie? How is this genetically connected to this young person so that they can know and that the families that are caring for them can know what to keep an eye open for in the future. Again, here's some more options, goes into mental health and physical health things. And then this other important people can be anyone that's important to note that wasn't noted previously. So if great grandma is amazing and has been a constant presence in this child's life, you would want to note her here, note why they were connected and how they were connected, and note that she's a very important person in their life. In social medical histories in Minnesota, we also go through and redact, take out identifying information, and then put them as an attachment to this. So birth records, medical records, dental, IEPs, all of that. So a completed social medical history is about 20-ish pages for this document, and then a whole stack of information for those attachments. And that is really, for a lot of purposes, but it's because we have to make sure that prospective adoptive parents know all they can about this young person. But at Power of Story, we really feel like it's the main purpose is that the young person can have access to their own information after they age out of the foster care system or after they are adopted. And this is one place that it's gathered and available to them. It's already redacted and ready to go. So that, in a nutshell, is a social medical history. We are excited to be doing these. We think that they are important and valuable. I would be curious if you've listened to this. If you're in Minnesota, have you done one of these? Have you seen one of these? If you are a foster youth or a foster adopted parent, have you gotten one of these, and how helpful was it? And if you're in another state, what's your form called? Do you have something like this? Is there a document that's accessible and should be returned at reunification and is requestable after finalization? And it's part of the process. I would love to hear more. Thank you so much for taking 12 minutes of your time to listen to me here. This is a social medical history. Thanks, guys.